Why would they lie?
Oh no.
Great question.
I don't think so, but just support Alan. Thank you, guys.
You know
Less than
so. You know.
yours.
I can give a PayPal donation.
Yeah, well, now that the pressure's off,
Or
the
20.
camera's off, I'd like to ask you the hard-hitting questions. One.
Oh my
is-
god, I gotta go. I gotta go. No more questions. No more questions.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You
so
don't want to
why
get
would they
Gallus back.
lie?
Why would they lie?
Oh no.
Great question.
Yeah, why do people lie?
Couldn't be
do what they
because of
want.
power or anything like that. Couldn't be because knowledge is power, right? Nah.
Yeah, it can be that.
Do you think Stephen King's a flat earther? Because he wrote a story once called The Dome.
Yeah, they made a TV series too with that.
He's definitely in the know.
That's interesting.
I think a lot of high level production people, they know what's up.
Actually, Stephen King's, what's that series? Is it The Gunslinger, I think? No. The Dark Tower. Yeah, The Dark Tower. That's actually based on a flat earth as well.
Is that right? I'll have to
Yeah.
check that.
The
How so?
audiobooks are pretty crazy, Eric or Dave.
Well, so
yeah?
so sorry, in the Dark Tower they talk about some kind of ley lines.
Oh, okay, cool. That's a whole topic we should tackle too. The ley lines.
Yo, Dom, you hear there's a Dungeons and Dragons game that's about to start?
Nice. I'm gonna take my dog out because I just woke up and heard your presentation. So I'm gonna take my dog out and then I'm ready.
Nice.
Okay, sorry. Actually, so now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure all of Stephen King's work is based on reality because what's that? The book It about the clown. So apparently the Nephilim looked like clowns.
Yeah, those are some cool. That's a cool series of videos. People, a couple different channels have done. That's interesting.
Oh, Gally, that's Guy McGuyerson.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Why would you lie?
Yeah.
Is if there is, or if there does turn out to be a dome, it's hardly natural, right? So you realize you're in an artificial construct, right?
Unless it's God created, and then what do you
No,
call
actually,
natural?
God
actually,
doesn't
we're inside
create.
of a dead body.
Well, God doesn't create artificial environments, does he? Or it creates natural biological environments that don't include
Well, then
domes.
well, if it was God, not that I'm saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying if it was
Well, it
God
isn't.
creating it and God created everything, it would be natural.
No,
It would
don't
be a
bring
natural.
God. Don't bring God or Jesus into it. Just it's an
Well,
artificial environment, right?
I'm not
Right?
usually one to do so, but you can't.
Well,
How do you call anything artificial? I understand what you're saying, though.
well, an artificial environment is once upon a time.
Why
there
do
wasn't
you
a
get
road.
to decide what God
No.
decides is natural or
Well,
artificial.
hang on. Once upon a time, there wasn't a road. Once upon a time, there wasn't a church. A human built it, not God. So who built the dome? Who put the dome over the top? It's not God.
Why not?
How do you know it?
Well, you can't say for sure it wasn't God. That's the
So
thing.
Yeah.
why would God create an environment and then put a dome over the top so no one
Maybe to
can leave?
separate the water from the oxygen you're breathing.
Well, without a container, we would die. We wouldn't have the air pressure and everything else.
You couldn't have a gas pressure gradient. You couldn't have electrical gradient potential. Like,
So what kind of God
there's
are we
many
talking about?
reasons.
An electromagnetic dome making toroidal field God? What kind of God's that? I don't think the Bible talks about that God.
Well, the Bible says firmament.
Made the heavens above,
And
yeah.
it does describe a toroidal field in Ezekiel.
So actually,
Yeah,
yeah, the Bible doesn't say anything about God. The Bible talks about the Elohim.
And I don't think
And
the
so
Bible
anyway,
spoke about the internet or digital technology. I don't remember that bit.
Oh, yeah, it's because you didn't read Hebrew.
okay, wait. But this is like the assumption, like God didn't make the roads, but what are the roads made of? The rocks, right? So, I mean, the road is just a human concept.
So
But to the point that was just made,
upon
it's just the Elohim. Then the Elohim are like a Superman type race of people where we came from. And do they say is your interpretation that the Bible saying the Elohim made the firmament?
well, once upon a time there wasn't 7-Eleven. Once upon a time there weren't computers. There was just the natural world, and humans hadn't got involved yet, right?
But the computer is an amalgamation of silica, plastics, and metals in order to create a design of a circuit. I mean, it's still made out of baseline materials arranged into what we call a useful product, basically.
So we're in some kind of advanced civilization, computerized crystalline electromagnetic dome donut, right?
That would be the best guess, baby.
I mean, sorry if I'm having fun with it. Like, this is
Okay,
hilarious, so you got to have fun with it.
I think the most hilarious thing is thinking about it as like a big bang that has like all these impossibilities that had to come together for us to be on a spinning rock upside down relative to each other, spinning and traveling throughout the universe. And then it's all natural if it came from a big bang, but it's not natural if it came from God.
No, the alternative to the globe is ridiculous.
No, the globe is ridiculous.
They're both ridiculous.
We live an absurd existence, but then what can you really compare our existence with to call it absurd?
Yeah, what would be a non-absurd existence?
I think it's only
one that has biological, natural. See, this is where people. So from
You can't even define what
biological
biological and natural is.
Well, biological and natural and organic compounds.
What
are
is
in and of themselves
biological and natural to
right?
the creator of everything? Like you
Well,
could
then
be
technology.
technically a machine, or you could technically be a biologic. Like
Right. So again,
a computer could just be. I mean, like
if you call it technology, right? Like biological technology.
it's just human concepts.
No, it's artificial. It's not natural. Why do people run from that?
Right. What are people running from?
The idea that where we exist isn't natural. It's artificial.
Well, we don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
Like, do we have a natural world to compare the unnatural world to?
Apparently we do.
What's that?
The Amazon jungle.
That's part of this world.
Is
Bro,
it natural?
oh my god.
Well, it wouldn't exist without the dome.
Oh
If
my
there is a
God,
dome
let's
or
talk
some kind of
about the
container.
Bible. The Bible will answer all the natural, like modern
No, it
humans'
didn't, bro.
Hey,
No, it
you know what? I'm
doesn't.
not a
Don't even
Bible
read
guy.
the Bible, bro.
You know, I'm not a Bible guy, Merle. I'm just saying if there's a container of some sort, that has to be part of the system for the Amazon to even exist. So we don't have an all natural world outside of this world to say that this one is, you know, synthetic in any more of a way than anything else.
So, so it's there, but is it real?
Who knows what real is? What's real?
Well, this is the question. What people want to know, what's going on? Why have we been lied to? Why are we in this situation? Right? Could some of the answers be it's not real, and they don't want people to know that, and it's just a game, a dream world?
Well, if they can tell you that, they'll probably be the first one to tell you that. They'd be happy for you just to think everything's not real.
Well,
Yeah.
what is it then?
Actually,
Well, that's the
hold on.
thing.
So
Even
they
if they
have
were to
convinced.
tell us the truth, how would we know if they're
Yeah.
telling us the truth?
Yeah, so they have convinced people that this reality isn't real and that the afterlife is the real life.
Well, even Freddie Mercury asks it in Bohemian Rhapsody. I think it's one of the first lines. Is this the real life, or is it just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality, right?
Yeah, because this is reality. This is it.
So this is base reality, one version of a human construct under a dome with confused humans walking around scratching their heads wondering how it all got here, right?
Now, hold on, Merle. Do you
Maybe
think
no one
humans?
ever knew.
Hold on. You think humans made all this?
No, but they're obviously in a construct that has been designed and constructed by something more intelligent than us.
Now, what do you think it's constructed out of?
That sounds like you're going Bible there, Merle. Sounds like you just described God.
No, I don't think it's God. I think if you step up the DNA ladder, it stops at us. So the sequence is
Or is it-
incomplete.
Who knows? How do you know that though?
I know that. I can prove it. So the sequence is incomplete. And we see a very limited aspect of what the true DNA sequence is.
So, what do you think it's all made out of, Merle?
Well, it's a fair question. It's everything that's here seems to be. It doesn't seem like it's been like a bulldozer or a crane was brought from Mars to build the Earth. It seems like the stuff was already here, and then somebody dug it all up and transformed it into railway lines and planes and everything we see and have. You know, the stuff was already here. So how it all got here is the question.
So, okay, so you're just saying that the Earth just always existed, like the dirt that we're standing on was just here since the beginning.
Yeah, that's another fair question. Is it eternal? There seems to be a metaphysical aspect. You know, is the physical world eternal? Not sure. It might have had a beginning, and it might have an end point, but it seems there's an eternal, like something that was, is, and will be. You know, it's beyond time.
Yeah, so the only thing that seems to be eternal, that's everlasting forever, is the water.
Right. What are you thinking, baby? Do you think it was always here?
No, well, I think water was always here. The water is the only thing that's infinite. The Earth that we're standing on is literally a dead body. It used to be alive in the water, that being had offspring, and that offspring killed it, and then they made where we live.
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
I mean, and
Me
there's
too.
because there's evidence that the ground is biological. There's no other explanation for how the ground got here.
I agree with that.
appreciate that. Yeah.
I think it was a tree, or a bunch of trees, but doesn't really matter what it was, right?
Well, see, the problem with trees is you only see trees growing in the ground, and the ground used to be a living organism that's now dead. So I'm not really sure how trees could live within the water, but I can see, some kind of large sea dragon or tortoise or other kind of sea creatures living in the water. So, from the looks of it, it seems like life came first, then the trees. I don't even know what a fucking tree is. I mean, it makes no sense really, because so if we're within the water, and then you have a dead body, and that dead body from the process of being in the water and dead turns into this, and then now there's life growing within it. I mean, so what are the trees? That means that they're like what, giant moss or something like that, and we're just tiny amoebas, basically.
I definitely think that we're tiny. I think that's the problem humanity has, is we think we're a lot bigger than we are.
Yeah, so I don't think trees were first. I'm pretty sure the living beings were first.
I don't know what was first. I just think the ground we're walking upon is mostly tree or some kind of plant, something. But it could be super fauna too. There's no reason it can't be both, or maybe the fauna came first and then the giant trees.
It really just appears to be living beings, like things with blood and stuff, not trees. A lot of the stuff that I've looked at. I know that what is that? No forests on flat Earth or whatever that shit was. The things that they were claiming were giant trees. They definitely don't look like trees. I know how people can get the idea, but when you look at the surrounding area of it, it looks biological.
You don't think the Devil's Tower looks like a giant tree?
Definitely not. That looks more like tendons.
If you take a look into the research of it all, first off, I'll make a note. The largest living creatures on this earth today are trees. And if you look at plant cell walls under a microscope, they have that exact same hexagonal pattern to them, which I find a little bit more than coincidental.
Well, I mean, they say the largest thing on this earth is trees, but do you know what's in the oceans?
That's a good retort, to be honest, because there's some really big things indicated by some people in history here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, and check this
and they're
out.
definitely not
Here's
trees.
a crazy thing. Yeah, here's a crazy thing about fish and reptiles, especially. Maybe insects, I'm not really sure, but mammals, I don't think so. But the fish and the reptile, especially. So when you put these things in environments, right, where they're unrestricted, they just keep on getting bigger.
Yep, I agree fully. I know nothing to argue that. However, I do know there were giant trees. Like I'm a probability mathematics kind of guy, and like the Devil's Tower looks like a giant tree. The Jugurtha's Table looks like a giant tree. The 8-mile wide stumps in Madagascar look like giant trees. The atolls look like giant tree stumps. I think, and it mentions all this stuff in ancient texts like numerous times over. Maybe that's not what we're walking upon, but I guarantee you there is definitely giant silicon-based trees here. Guaranteed. I put my left testicle on that as a big wager.
No. The only thing is where are they at? Where'd the big trees go?
They cut them down. Somebody big cut them down. It mentions that in Ezekiel 31, actually.
Yeah, but if we're looking at those to be large trees, we would see remnants of it somewhere, at least something.
We do. What do you think all the sand is on this earth? It's sawdust. Then they ground them all up.
Well, okay, so you're saying that the tree, they chopped the tree down, it fell down, and then it disintegrated.
No, they chopped a whole bunch of the trees down. They burnt them and used a lot of heat. That's what the Ragnarok thing was about. And then they crystallized because of that, turning into the crystals and ores that we love so much and we were forced to mine. And then they mined them all. And they ground it all up. Like, that's just sawdust left over. That it's the quartz. It's not even a good one, right? They kept all the gold and the special metals, and that's what we're walking upon a bunch of mine shit, right? If you actually look at a mountain shape and then go out to a gravel pit and look at one of the regular sand dump piles, it looks the exact same. They have the same shape to them. It's just that whoever was dumping those was significantly larger than we are, whatever.
Now, yeah, but trees, trees don't have anything worth mining, right?
Not
So,
the trees that we have, but the trees that used to be here, yes.
see, I don't. That's
They kind of hint at that in Avatar, yeah?
Well, so here's the thing, though, because so everyone knows that you have iron in your blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes more sense that the minerals come from biologicals and not
A tree is still
trees.
biological. When I make my theory on this, I point out that this stuff can be super fauna or super flora and a mix of both. There's no reason it can't be both. It's just people don't like wrapping their heads around the fact that we're so tiny.
Okay, so can you demonstrate a tree or fauna turning into something that's mineable?
You actually can take a research into petrified logs that we have. It's normal size ones. These aren't the big fucking fancy ones. The bigger the tree, I think, the better the material. And just the little ones that we can find, like in Nevada and such, you can find examples that are made of 100% pure opal, which is definitely still mineable and rare, right? But that's just a little tiny twig. We're talking the big ones were really cool shit. Also, if you start looking at some of the little, if you want to take a road trip down this rabbit trail, you start to notice that when it gets to these big ones, they're like 40 kilometers or 35 miles across or bigger. There tends to be uranium mines around them as well. I find that a little interesting.
Can you show me a photo of these things that you're talking about that are opal?
Oh, the opal ones? Yeah, give me, actually, I have it on Discord, different channel. Give me a second here. I got a whole bunch of stuff on this. Facebook ended up deleting me a few years back, but I think that was for my math. Whatever the case. Okay, where's this opal one? Right here. Let's see, I'm just going to forward this. I think that should work. Nope, I'm just going to save that and then put it in here. I'll put it in the chat here. The text chat for this section. There, live stream text. There we go.
I have an opalized tree. I
go.
collect crystals and I actually have one.
I believe the
Opalized
crystals are all
bark.
part of these giant trees, and that's like they say in magical wands and stuff. They use crystals or wood, and I'm like, hey, maybe it's actually they're just using all tree.
Man,
No,
seriously, that looks
exercising
like a bone.
Like a what?
Like a bone.
No,
Surrounded by
that was a
meat.
tree stump. If you actually look in the background, you can see them more of them. They're chopped down. They actually have many, many examples, but not too many of them are like pure opal like that. But that one's a really nice specimen.
The issue is that when you chop down a tree, it doesn't have different colors. This is different colors.
You're talking
the center is
carbon
white
based.
and the outside is red.
Hey,
That's
can you
carbon
guys
based.
hear her talking?
Barely.
A little bit.
Taylor, your microphone sucks ass, or your connection.
I can
or
hear
whatever
her fine.
Can y'all hear me?
Really?
I can hear you fine, Taylor.
You're a little low, Taylor, but we can hear you. So Taylor's trying to say something.
Hello. Okay. I was just going to mention how I have opalized trees. A lot of them are from Australia, and they have petrified trees that turn opal. I have multiple.
Now you've seen the tree petrify itself.
Yes, I have some. Yes.
So what I'm saying is you have seen the tree become petrified.
No. Nobody has seen that. However, if you go research it,
That's what I
the
wanna
only
know.
way we have actually successfully petrified anything is by adding silicate to it and then adding a lot of heat afterwards. So we have two things that we know are requirements for petrification. One is a lot of heat, and number two, it needs to have silicon present to begin with. It doesn't just show up afterwards. Same with dinosaur bones or whatever, dragon bones, whatever you want to call them. Those bones that are petrified in the ground, they're all made from silicon too, or silicates.
Is that something they're admitting or hiding?
No, that's admitting. There's no hiding that. There's just the excuse they use for it's fucking ridiculous. The bones, they say that mineral water came in over the years and replaced the carbon. And those petrified trees, they say that magma, silicate magma, poured into it and replaced it all afterwards. So we all know if you took wood and added like magma to it, it would just turn to a husk of burnt charcoal.
Did you get this idea originally from seeing Ewar talk about it in Lost History?
No,
So
I
that's
got
the
this
first time
idea
I've heard of
myself
this
years
idea.
and years and years ago when I was researching this stuff. The Devil's Tower was presented to me, and the 8 Mile Stump in Madagascar was also presented to me. And then the rest of the stuff I kind of already had on hand because I used to be an avid glober and bashing people and such, right? So I did my research into the many, many subjects. And then after my mind opened all the way, I was like, oh, wow, lots of this stuff is useful for this side of the fence. I'm just talking
Nice.
thought
Welcome.
exercises here, right? I'm not trying to impress my views on anybody here. I don't want anybody, I could be wrong. There's no reason for me to be arrogant and think that I'm absolutely right.
Right. That's that was the baller in you that was doing that before.
No, the glober in me beforehand was not a truther. I was still into the Hollow Earth and all the other conspiracies in the bunch. I just wouldn't accept the flat Earth because I was all convinced I had figured out the Hollow Earth, electromagnetic fields, and yada yada.
A lot of us go there first, yeah.
Yep. But no, the trees one, man, like there's so much to it. It delves into so many different things. Like, for example, it even mentions Ezekiel, after he cut the trees down, he had to hold the waters at bay. That's what made the earth flood. They cut down tens of thousands of these gigantic fucking trees. The water had nowhere to go, and it just piled up and fucking flooded eventually. Though it sounds like they had some kind of device to hold the water in. That's why the floodgates are mentioned.
Did you know what I'm talking about with Ewar's mention of the same thing? You know what I'm talking about with the Lost History of Flat Earth series?
Yeah, Awar Arinon's good stuff, man. I'm not a very big video person fan, but his stuff was really good.
Yeah, he talks about there was a silicon age. Yeah, or at least
I didn't
other
see
people
that.
have also said that.
Oh, interesting.
Well, the idea is that there's a silicon like the animals and the trees.
Yep. No, that's what I say. The Lemurian lion, that Hercules legend was probably because that's why they couldn't pierce its skin with swords and shit like that, right? He had to crush its neck or whatever. Most likely because it was a silicate-based creature.
It makes a lot of sense too if you are trying to explain the deserts being like just silicon sand.
Yeah, that's all. Of course,
the remnants.
I say that
of the trees.
regardless of whether it's fauna, like you say, or flora, like I'm indicating, the same principle. This whole world that we use, everything that we use, we're like hermit crabs. We're actually taking a bunch of corpses of everything and reconditioning it, reusing it for our own purposes. But everything we use is a living creature of some sort, living being of some sort.
Do you get into Stellium 7's channel? You know about him?
Nope, I don't know that person.
He goes around and picks up rocks, and his theory is that a lot of the rocks we're finding are organs that are petrified.
Yep, I've seen stuff like that. Not necessarily that guy, but lots of the meat stuff too. If you notice, a lot of them look like chopped up meat in chunks and layers of skin. And
yeah, I'll send you his channel. You'd probably dig it.
I seen this one where this guy goes along the beach. Like, I don't delve too much in the super fauna because that stuff's like, whoa. But the one guy does point out all along this beach for fucking, I don't even know how long. I couldn't, at least a kilometer. It's all this layer of weird looking rock. And then he shows you what our skin looks like in the second layer. And it's like, whoa, because it's got the same exact pattern to it. But can you imagine the size of something like that? And we have a hard time wrapping our heads around, for example, the Devil's Tower, because each of those hexagons is huge. But that's like one cell. It's supposed to be, right? Like when you're looking at the cell walls of a tree or a plant or a creature, they have the same thing, actually. Creatures have the same hexagonal patterns. You'll notice that they're like way smaller, but then you can go look at real science, and these guys grew like I think it was a cold cell, whatever, with one, and it grew huge. It was a single cell organism, but it grew like the size of like half a football or something. It was pretty big.
I think I'm going to talk to you over at one of the spaces on Twitter. If you were talking about some of the crystals and stuff that are good for healing that you wear and stuff like that, or is it somebody else I was talking to?
I've researched the crystals and all their properties and such, and esoteric and spiritual and whatnot, but I don't invest in that too heavily. You know what I mean? It's nice to know, but I'm not gonna go try pouring. I have a whole bunch of theories of what it could be. Like I had this old Bible, and in it mentioned that there was God was having problems. Like, I'm not religious, by the way. I'm just going off information I've read, and it says God was having problems with the fallen ones coming back. They were resurrecting themselves somehow. And it was a substance that it was only explained as being like a fog. There was some kind of substance on this earth, and he removed it all. And I'm wondering if that substance was like put out by the trees or whatever. And when they cut them all down, it was no longer there. But when they blasted all these trees and crystallized them all, that some of that substance got trapped inside, which is why everybody thinks there's power in the stones, right? Just a wild theory of
Okay,
mine.
that's interesting. You mean like magnetic power, like the magnets, like the magnetic?
I don't know. No, I wouldn't say like that. I would say like something a little more. Right?
Yeah.
Like
the other theory is that they cut the trees down so the giants couldn't climb them when the flood came, right?
I've heard about all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think those are all. I think they cut it down for mining. I think all the gold and the silver that we got comes from them. I figured the iron and stuff came from large creatures and such. Like, I think that the different types of materials came out of different things. I don't think it was all one thing. I think there was multiple types of trees and multiple types of gemstones. For example, where I live, there's a bunch of, like, all the lakes have an island. The island, if you look at it on the depth charts and shit, and then the top looks like a flat cut off tree. And then around here, it's all quartz and what's the other one? There's garnet. Like, we have purple beaches everywhere. And if you look at the layers in it, and especially in undisturbed areas where people haven't been hanging around the beach, you can see there's a layer of this like golden thick sand, and then a layer of the purple sand, and then a layer of the white sand. Like somebody just shot it all and dumped it, which is how mining works. You do your first layer and crush it up and shoot out, and you shoot all that crap out. Then you do your next layer and break that down and you shoot all that stuff out. You know what I mean? And you sort it all by sifting, and this is all very common mining practices, right? That's what I see when I look at my whole land everywhere. I see there was these giant trees, and I think creatures too. Like when I was researching spots, I wanted to prove this by going and mining in these certain areas. I just took the 2020 COVID shit caught me right off guard, and I wasn't able to do it. But there was another example I was looking at down in a way other end of my country, and it looks like, and I don't mean to be a prude or anything, but it looks like a giant fucking dragonfly. Like 1.5 kilometers long. Like, it doesn't look like a tree or anything. It looks like a giant fucking creature. And then notably, not only does it look like a nice place of mine with the red clay and everything around it, but the bay that surrounds the area, which is it's on one of the Great Lakes, that bay is known as Magnetic Bay because there's a huge electromagnetic or magnetic disturbance and people's compasses get all fucked up. And I'm like, oh, is it because of that giant fucking corpse that's sitting there? Like, I don't know. Definitely interesting to ponder, though.
You ever listen to the channel My Lunch Break? He talks about some of that kind of stuff.
No, I have. I'm actually, most of my research I've done myself. I very rarely go look at other people's videos. Awar Anon, I came across his. I watched that Lost History of Earth, the 5-hour documentary. I couldn't peel my eyes off it. I was just like, yeah, I know this. This is good. Yeah, I know this. This is good. Yeah, I know this. This is good. But when he got to the part about the alchemy, which I have researched, I was like, holy fuck, did he hit a whole new level up? Like, I researched it, and it seems the underlying message is that you got to kill people to make the Philosopher's Stone as part of the Magnus Opus, the great work. And then he went one step further and is pointing out that's actually all code for using gold and silver mixed, amalgamated with mercury, and then making an electromagnetic force, and it's free energy out of it. And I was like, holy fuck, like, he might be onto something with that, right? That's pretty cool stuff. Awar Anon. And you know what's weird is I was actually friends with this guy on Facebook for a while. He was like, just like we had the same points of view, same everything. And for like 2-3 months, and he sounded, I didn't see Awar Anon until about 3 months after our friendship when we were in these chats all the time. And then I watched Awar Anon's video, and I was like, fuck, this guy, he really sounds like that guy that I know. And I went and sent him a link. I'm like, hey, have you seen this guy? And he blocked me instantly after that. Just blocked me. And I was like, what the fuck? And I found out from people later that he would seem to have been threatened or something because he totally changed his point of view and shut down everything afterwards. And I wonder if, maybe he got threatened and maybe he thought I was like a Fed or something because, like being all friendly and whatnot. They'd be like,
I
hey,
heard
do
you
you
saying
recognize
this
this guy?
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you
Okay.
say. I don't know if it was in Twitter Space or not, but yeah, I heard you tell the story. I was interested in asking you about it at the time. I didn't get to. I was at work, I think.
Oh,
But
that would have been
you
here.
think you met? You think you met? Maybe it was here. You think you met Ewar?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was him. I'm really good with voices and stuff like that. I can pick up really good ones. I've talked to people, and he had like the same exact accent, the same points of views on things. Like we were vibing real good, man. So. I mean, I was like, and that's what made me send in the video. I'm like, fuck, he sounds just like this guy, right? So I linked it to him, and he fucking blocked me instantly. And I was like, what the fuck?
Well, that's strange. Huh? And how was it again? What was you were at a seminar or something like that? You said.
No, we were in. It was at. So I was in a big Facebook group for a while, like a really, really big flat Earth group. I was originally a glober in it, and then, man, that one guy came along, and I don't think he did that by accident. I think he knew exactly how to approach us egotistical minds of mathematics and be like, "Hey guys." Now I was in there. I had my stepdad's a flat earther, and I was like making fun of him all the time with my mom too. We're just ragging into him. And then one day I woke up in the morning and I was like, I feel kind of bad. I'm just gonna, for today, I'll take it with a grain of salt. I'll actually look into the flat earth stuff with a fair aspect and pretend like I don't know anything. And dude, I was just lost after that. And then I was like hanging on to my threads behind this mathematician. He was a university math professor. There was like fucking 3,000 comments on this post, and he was bashing everybody with his math, and he was really good. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get behind this guy, right? And then this dude comes on. He said he was a programmer, and he's like, hey guys, since you're all arguing about the curvature and shit, can one of you guys give me the curvature formula? I need it for my programming. And that professor provided him with the big one that I think it has sine or cosine or tan, like one of those, I think tan. I think he provided two, and each one has a different triangular mathematical formula in it for figuring it out. It's a rather large formula for something really simple, is what one would think after they look into it. And this guy's like, no, not that. He's like, I use pi and I use the radius, circumference, diameter, and all the knowns. And I run it around with my coding, and I'll get the effect that I need. But I feel like there should be something from the other side, just as simple, like the opposite way of doing the code. And I took physics, and I was like, fuck, he's right. There should be some really simple way to figure that out, simple to all the rest of what he's doing. So I went, and I'm like, I'm going to go do this myself. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to end this flat earth discussion forever, right? And I was like, okay, so what's curvature to me, right? Mundane terms. If I was on a huge ball and I took a step forward, how much would I also drop down? Right? That's what curvature is. That's what we're trying to explain. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the simple answer to that would be to take the distance that I step out, so the distance traveled, and divide it into the distance that I drop down, and I should get a percentage. Right? This is where things get real fucked. And I did the math for it, and I got like 63.66% drop. That's what I got. 0.6366, which is like 63% drop. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I'm running with 8 inches a mile squared originally, like everybody else has taught me to do for all these years. And I was like, so 63% means at 10 feet out, it would drop 6 feet. And at 100 feet, it would drop 60 feet. And at 1,000 feet, it would drop 600 feet, right? And at a mile, which is like 5,000 some odd feet, it would be over 3,000 feet of drop required. And I was like, that can't fucking be right. Right? That's just way too much. That doesn't, maybe the Earth's really big like they said it was, and the drop's a lot less. So I used a really big circle, and I did the math, and I got the same fucking number. And I was like, what the fuck? So then I did a smaller one, and I got the same number. And I was like, Jesus, what's going on? So I'm like, I've got to check my work at least. So the way it works out is you have to times the diameter by 2. And then you divide it by this 0.6366, and you get the circumference, the same rate, same rough amount you get if you use pi to 3.14. And I was like, oh my God, math checks itself. So yeah, you can take any diameter you want, times by 2, divide by fucking 0.636, you got the fucking diameter. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I realized what actually happened. They trick us in school by teaching us pi. Because what is pi? They give you some stupid explanation, and I asked, and it doesn't make any fucking sense. But I can tell you what pi is. So what's a circle in one dimension? It would be a line equal to the diameter, right? That sounds about right.
Yep.
Because we only perceive one dimension. Now, in 2 dimensions, we call a 2-dimensional circle we draw on a paper 2-dimensional. That's actually incorrect. It's still a 3-dimensional object. A 2-dimensional being would only be able to perceive 2 dimensions. So down the line, and then back up the other side. And it's not until the 3rd dimension that we start to apply this curvature that we talk about. That's where the 3 point. So what pi is a transition of a 1-dimensional circle, 1D, D, diameter, right? That's funny how the dimension and diameter have the same fucking letter. 1D changed into a 3D circle, so you times it by 3.14, which skips understanding of curvature because it's found between the 2-dimension and the 3-dimension, which is why you have to go 2D divided by 0.6366, and you got your number. So the actual curvature of a circle is 63% drop. And I posted that math on my Facebook. Now, when I went back the next day after I figured I didn't get any fucking sleep. I was up all night. So the next day I get back on that conversation. I'm like, maybe this math professor will have something to say about this. So I presented him with this in the middle of that conversation. And he goes to me, he says, well, you're right, but the Earth's not a perfect circle, he goes. And then I said, yeah, but it's still got to be close, right? Because if you fuck your pi up by 1 decimal place, you don't have a circle anymore, right? It's that sensitive to the whole ordeal. It has to be like right spot on there. So he's like, no, you're absolutely right. Then that guy stopped talking. No responses for 2 fucking weeks. And he was one of the most avid people on this group. And then 2 weeks later, I go to log in my Facebook and they deleted me outright, saying I was portraying a celebrity. I just don't even want to get into the rest of it as a crazy fucking, but there was no turning back at that point, man. So then I can prove this, like a whole bunch of things. They try to say curvature of circles changes, right? Now I got a video of a pizza thing. It's silly. My flat earth buddies are laughing, but they know I'm right about it. And where they take this pizza and they cut like a cross out of the middle of it, like directly in the middle. And then it's like they say the pizza companies are stealing pizza because of this or whatever. And then they take those 4 pieces and they stick them together as a smaller circle and it all works out fine. Why would that work if curvatures of larger circles were different than the curvature of a smaller circle? Why would gears work? Why would pulleys work? Why would all these things work to have different sized circles if they have different curvatures to them? They don't, right? Diameter is a change, radius is a change, volume, area, circumference.
All right, Rick.
Sorry,
Rick, let's let some other people get in, bro. Let's let some other people get in, bro. Yeah, let's keep this going, man. Thanks. Just take 5, bro. Thanks. Chill. Cheers. Just let some other people respond if we can.
I've been meaning to ask you a question.
I was kind of asking about something. Sorry, I was trying to get that his origin story. He was kind of telling how he woke up to flat Earth, and his challenges to his math.
No, that's me.
Pretty interesting.
They tell me to shut up all the time. I talk too much.
No, it's all good. I'm not trying to tell. I'm not trying to shut down what you're saying. I'm just saying you've been going for I think people wanted to respond to some of those points.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I'm
real
sorry.
Quick, I don't think he was trying to debate anybody. I just wanted to hear the end of that, if you don't mind, real quick, Rick. So you were locked out basically of that class. Is kind of the point. Like basically, like they figured out that you figured it out and banned you and made a claim about your name.
Just for that mathematical formula. Like I didn't post conspiracy posts or any of that kind of stuff. Even the tree stuff was very minimal. It was just that math that I posted on my wall and on that group post, and they deleted me outright. And they deleted my second account too. But, this I had a little extra on here. I don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it. You guys don't need to get that.
Yo.
Anyways,
his point, Gio. I don't know if you heard what you're saying, but he's saying there's a 63% drop, or the drop is much greater than we're led to believe for the ball Earth, and they get away with it by saying it's oblate spheroid. Basically, is that the point?
The point is what they skip the understanding of curvature. It makes, if anybody knew and understood how curvature of a circle works, there'd be nobody that would buy into this. Period. Right? There'd be no fucking questioning it.
Is it the squared they get away with it? Is it because of the squared, and then they can, because it doesn't work otherwise? It's like a slope for the two.
It doesn't work anyways. Right? If you actually decide to apply oneself and you say, okay, let's draw some lines. Let's go. The first one, we'll drop it over the first mile at fucking 8 inches. And then the second mile requires 8 times 8, I think it was, so 64 inches. And then it keeps incrementally getting way more angle, and will actually give you it will draw into a spiral, like a really ugly spiral that stops into itself. It's nowhere near a circle. Secondly, if you've worked with construction at all, and if you put an 8-inch drop over 1 mile, you could probably bowl on it. That's how flat it would be.
Right. Yeah. It's they have to do it that way. Otherwise, people would call it out right away.
Yeah, and what happens when you decide to say, oh, I'm going to start measuring here, and you measure your first mile and your second mile, but wait a second, no. I'm going to walk a mile forward. I'm going to start my measurement there. Does that mean that you just reset it and you don't get it to that mile's not the 64 inches and it's going to be 8? Like, what? None of that makes any sense if we actually apply ourselves to it, right?
Did I hear you saying something about like phi is the answer, not pi before, or was that somebody else?
No, that wasn't me. No, the answer is 0.6366. That's curvature. It's a constant.
Okay. That's
was it 0.6366? What was that?
That's curvature, 63% drop of a circle, right? So you can actually you can find it yourself, because what I did originally was I took a rough estimate. We use kilometers here in Canada, so it was like 38,000 kilometers, as they say our circumference is, and a little bit. So I just rounded it up to 40, right? And then I was like, well, I don't need to use the whole thing. I can cut this into 4 and use 1/4 of the pi. And then my distance traveled is 1/4 the circumference, right, from the North Pole to the equator. And my distance dropped is equivalent to the radius, half the diameter, because you're going halfway down. So I have my numbers for me. And if you do that with a 40,000 unit circle, you get 6,366. Then you divide it by the 1/4. Sorry, go ahead.
Is this still like what do you call it? It's not Pythagorean. Like what? I mean, is this still sitting within the same sort of?
Yeah, I took the same knowns and I mixed them around together, right? That's all I did. Is I figured out, like, take the distance that you travel and divide it into the distance that you drop. And that's all I did, right? It was a very simple procedure, like that, just like that programmer said it was. He's like, I feel like there's something, and I'm sure that fucker knew exactly what he was asking us. He was setting me up to be a flat earther.
Do you have anything that you could post that would help people explain this to other people with the pi and the way that works?
Like pi is that you have to understand the first part, and then you understand the transition and what's going on, right? That's what I said. Like pi is a transition of a 1D circle to a 3D. So you take one dimension, the diameter, 1D, the length of it, and you multiply it by that 3.14. That skips curvature. They skip curvature, and that's why nobody understands it.
That's interesting.
And then after, I'll tell you guys, I'll finish that up. So after I remade my second account and started posting again. So the first time they asked me for a picture of my ID to prove that it was me. So I gave them a picture of my ID. They still deleted me anyways. The next account, they did the same thing again. And they said, we want a picture of your face. Make sure it's clear. And that way we can process it. So I was like, fuck, they're just gonna fucking delete me anyways. You know what? Let's go full conspiracy theorist. And I went and took a picture where you could barely see my face, except I covered my left hand with my left eye, and my account was back online 20 minutes later.
Oh, you gave them the signal. They're like, oh, you're one of us. Come on in.
And then when I started posting stuff later, like everybody else I knew was getting red bands, and I got a yellow band. But my yellow band is to this day is still there 3.5 years later, and there's no timer on it. I just have a permanent yellow band. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. It's being odd, but
that's interesting. That would be, if you're right about this and could show this plainly for anyone else to explain, that would be one of the best flat earth proofs. Right?
I know it is the best matter, but I'm not doing that. If people, sorry, buddy.
Hey, Taylor, you're hot miking.
You're breaking up, buddy.
No, Taylor's hot miking a little bit.
You don't know Taylor, you're hot miking. If you like it,
I don't know.
Finish talking about crafts.
I got her.
Thank you. Couldn't get to my phone.
Yeah, that would be one of the best flat earth proofs if you could just lay that out for everyone to show anyone else very plainly and matter of fact.
I have actually converted like 100 fucking smart, like really good math dudes at it. They were like, the one guy, I remember him clearly, he's like, flat earth stupid. So I'm like, okay, let's talk about circles. And throughout this conversation, I had to keep reminding him, we're talking about circles. We're not talking about the earth. He's like, oh, okay. And by the end of that, when I finished it, I'm like, so what do you think? And he's like, we're all stupid. That's what he had changed his perspective immediately by the end of that conversation. It's only really good for mathematically inclined people. The one I use for people that aren't so mathematically inclined is like, example, they tried to say recently that this 24-hour sun in Antarctica proved the Earth was a globe. However, if there's 24 hours of sun in Antarctica, that means that they had daytime at the same time as all of the northern hemisphere. And now we're not talking about the light, we're talking about the object of the sun. It is up in the sky in Antarctica, and it is up in the sky up in Canada at the same fucking time. So how is that possible if they're upside down for me? That would require a sun to be in two places at the same time. Now, they say it's way off to the side. So if we actually picture this, the only people in the world that would see a sun rising to setting right overhead in the sky would be people directly on the equator, right? Because it wouldn't work with anybody else. We would see it at the very bottom of the horizon at best, barely going over them. You know what I mean? We have to actually, it's just people aren't putting the effort into perspective. If you can get them to listen to you,
I mean,
that's a different
point.
story.
That's one of the like simple points in another way people have made all along with, well, if I'm seeing the moon and the sun and they're both right here, then how is any other rest of the Earth seeing one or the other? And it doesn't seem to work out the way the globe likes to say. I don't know what their answer would be. 50 here. What would you say to that 50 about the 24 hours sun? Looks like you're trying to get in. Somebody else? Another
time zones. Wouldn't it be due to time zones?
See, here's a funny thing about time zones that people don't generally realize as a general whole. Time zones run horizontally. They don't, like vertically, they're the same. Like right below me down in South Dakota has the same time zone as me. Down below that has the same time zone. And then Texas down there has the same time zone as right next door to me. And if you go all the way down to Chile, they have 3 time zones. The very farthest to the west is Easter Island. And then on the coast, they have the same time zone as Nova Scotia, Canada. And that means they literally have high noon at the same time as each other. They both see the sun up in the sky at the same time. They both see the moon up in the sky at the same time, which is impossible if they're upside down from each other. We don't need great sciences to prove the fucking Earth's flat, because I'll explain why. Because people start using really advanced science and really advanced words and try to explain things away, but there's a problem with that. See, those sciences are based upon the foundation stones that all the lesser sciences and basic maths that we are taught in school are true, right? Those are the foundation stones for all that. Your 1 + 1 = 2, that's a foundation stone for advanced physics. If ever 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, the rest of the physics wouldn't work afterwards. So you can't excuse away simple stuff with advanced stuff and expect it to actually be true. It's the other way around. If you can counter that advanced stuff with simple stuff, you're right. Because the simple stuff comes first.
Can I ask you a question? We were having a bit of a discussion earlier on as to how many degrees are in a circle. And I said that there may be a rational way to think of like 0 or infinity degrees within a circle rather than 360.
Yep. And infinity was what I was going to respond with, technically, right? Because there's infinite angles, which is what I make a joke about when people are trying to use the sine, cosine, tangent, and triangle math to talk about the circles. And I'm like, why are you guys using triangle circles on an object with infinite angles? Or triangle math, sorry, right?
So what is it, mate? Within there's no two-sided shape. There's a one-sided shape, the circle, a three-sided shape, the triangle is the next simplest shape. I mean, is that the simplest shape, the triangle? They say sometimes. It depends on how you want to slice that dice. But that adds up to 180 degrees. But then the circle isn't really like a line. It's a curved line. It's not a straight line. It's not following vectors. It's a unique shape all its own in that regard, right? I don't know. I'm not very great.
There's no vortices. There's no vortices, so you can't really claim there's any angles to add up. See, that's why it's infinity, which you knew, right?
Yeah, but I think the thing is then at that point, like it's like a unique. It takes on a unique property at that point that it's a curved line, unlike a square or a triangle or any other kind of shape you want to start creating beyond that. It's the only shape that uses a curved line, like as far as like sort of your baseline geometry is concerned, anyway.
Yeah, with the 2D, that's interesting.
Your basic elemental shapes. Where's Fundy when you need him? Anyway.
It's like we got a new Fundy in the house.
I wouldn't mind knowing some of that stuff. It's an interesting argument, though. And then he does. I appreciated the point that he makes that it. I mean, his what would you say argument against like what is it? The mathematical explanation is like it's only really good against mathematicians, apparently. It's not great for people who are introduced. Yeah.
A lot of us have to be our best mathematician just to understand the points that are being made, but I think that one's not too hard.
Yeah, it's like stuff we learned in grade 8, right? But what they did is they skipped a chunk. They just skipped the notable chunk, said, here's pi, type it into your calculators, you're good to go, right? And then when I tried asking, hey, what is pi? That's another thing. I've never gotten an answer for, hey, show me on a piece of paper what sine, cosine, and tangent is. There's not a teacher on the face of this planet that fucking knows.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah. Like those numbers aren't they like, I mean, are they arbitrary?
There is no number, right? It's just an input into a machine that we use. My mom said that they supposedly taught her to when she was young, but she doesn't remember, but I'm not sure that's true.
I mean, I could show you, but it would take quite a while. If you ever want to go through that, I could definitely take you through it.
I'm far too old to. Maybe I might, maybe sometime, but yeah,
I mean,
there's got to be a way, right? Like they just don't teach us anything, so we don't have understandings of things. That's
No, they don't teach you the whole thing in middle school or whatever because it just takes so long. I mean, this is something that was done way before Pythagoras. They started working on these tables, and all it is it's a function that relates one side of a triangle to another side. So if you have a cosine of 45, that'll tell you that the length of the adjacent side is 1, and the length of the opposite side is 1, depending on what I'm saying. Like it's just basically a relationship between the sides of triangles.
Is this like where the metric system and the imperial system, like the cosine, tan, and those functions are required for the metric system or something, but maybe like it's pretty easy to remember within a fractional system like the empirical one?
No, I think that's just because you wanted to flex their muscle.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Say they're unique. They're special. They've got their own stuff.
There's not much
there any
difference
conspiracy
between
behind-
the imperial and the metric, right? Like the imperial is better for like humanity as a whole in general for small things, but the metric's better for either really, really tiny things or really, really long things. In Canada, they teach us both, right? And I will say that for general life, you can't beat the imperial system, because what would happen one day if we did lose everything, right? Everything was wiped out, the whole 9 yards. We have no measuring tapes left. Who knows what a centimeter is? How do you start and relate a centimeter or a meter or any of these things without the original measurement? Now, with the imperial system, it's based upon man. So like an inch is supposed to be like the index finger length of a 6 foot tall man. The foot's supposed to be his foot length roughly. That's the yard is supposed to be from his hip down to his foot. So if things ever did reset, you just get the guy who looks like around 6 feet tall. Come here, put your finger there, and you have all your measurements again. Yeah,
I thought it was the imperial system. Like that may I don't know the argument specifically, but that whole idea that it's based around a man is or like it's the principle, like the not a specific man. It's like the proportional ratios of man. And I mean, you can relate that back to the world in a lot of ways as well, using sort of, I don't know, Da Vinci's code and shit. So there are these proportional fractional ratios that are sort of just, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about this stuff. I've just heard other people talk about it. So I'm kind of
this is just what I was taught. I was taught that it was based off of humans themselves, and that's where it come from, which I always think is that's what we should be using, right? So that's some of the conspiracies say the metric system was what the gods used and the ones that created us.
Yeah.
The gods.
I'm making a leap. I'm making a leap of logic here, but it's kind of like, I mean, from what I understand of the different calendars that we've got, this sort of the 12-month or 13-month and all the different calendars, like a part of this is actually this is like a disorientation project. Like these calendars that are based on different systems, they seem to always they're deviating from an observation within nature, which is why you've got sort of these leap years that they created. I don't know, other people know more about this shit than I do, but I still think that the calendar is basically trying to disorientate you from the world and put you into man's world instead of like the natural world. So I sort of also think of the imperials, like the leap from the imperial to the metric seems to be sort of my man's going to be like master back to be done. Right. Your microphone's bad, sorry, bro. If you can fix it up, I'm like.
She's still that's.
Was it hot mic?
I unmuted her, but she's still hot mic. She didn't realize it. I just wanted to see if she was waiting for me to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, anyway, so like it's kind of just almost auto hoaxing on my part, but yeah, the leap from imperial to metric seems to be sort of an orientation, like sort of to take man's imagination from the sort of natural world into more of like man's mechanical world. So the metric system works better for that than what the imperial system and those sort of metrics where they sort of defer to nature. I'm not sure. Just kind of interesting stuff to me.
I'm not picky. I use both. We're both here, right? So if I have to use centimeters and millimeters, I will. Yeah, when I'm driving and stuff, I prefer kilometers over miles because like miles like 5,300 or whatever, some odd feet, and then a kilometer is even 3,000 feet, right? That's kind of easy enough to work with.
That's how all imperial stuff is. I don't think there's anything with imperial that is like a round number like that.
I mean, technically, it's a round number off the imperial, though, right? Because a foot, we have 3,000 feet, right?
What do you mean? I'm not sure what you mean.
Like a kilometer is 3,000 feet, even flush and nice, right? But that's still 3,000 units of imperial flush, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. I just meant like a standard definition, like 12 inches is a foot, something like that. But sure. If you want to convert it to kilometers, yeah, maybe. I wasn't aware of that though. But there's some crazy ones, man, like barley corns. It's like 3 barley corns is an inch or some. There's some really trippy ones. I'm trying to look a couple of them up because they really are kind of nutty.
We have a bunch of stuff in the metric that nobody uses too, like a hecameter and a decimeter and stuff. There's these other ones that just get left alone, never bothered with.
What do you make of the? Isn't it the speed of light is the same latitudinal value as the pyramid of Giza?
Pyramids? Not
Yeah.
just a coincidence. That must be.
Is that implied then for you, like that the speed of light is actually just instant potentially, rather than sort of like it's almost like an arbitrary number that came out of nowhere, like, and they just wanted to like they arrived at that number through like a reverse engineering it to the pyramid of Giza, and they didn't want to tell anyone, and maybe there's some sort of esoteric meaning to that number.
Well, it was noted that Einstein was a Knights Templar. I've read that before, and it would make sense that he would definitely put something esoteric or with some kind of symbology in it or symbolism inside his theories and whatnot. Like from what they say, Tesla said he didn't like Einstein very much, figured he was like an actor kind of thing. But I mean, if you're following conspiracy theories, Nikola Tesla might not even been a real person. He might have just been an excuse the government used for all them patents, right? We don't. Or maybe he was working for the government deconstructing the Tartarian stuff, you know? Like, who knows?
They used Tesla twice, didn't they? They used him for the AC versus DC war, and then they also used him as a sort of the antagonist of relativity. And I always think that, right? Like, I mean, you got the mainstream, you got the thesis, and then you got the antithesis, and they need to control both of them in order to create the kind of conclusion that they want. So,
tell them.
It's the only way they can actually guarantee the outcome is by controlling both sides. And so, I mean, yeah.
Dialectic reasoning. But yo, you guys keep bringing up Tartaria. People love Tartaria.
It's just a label. I don't know if it was called Tartaria.
Nah,
like,
listen,
people
I
don't
love
realize
I like talking about it.
that this was actually mentioned before all the conspiracy theories. It just didn't have a name. I used to be right into archaeology, paleontology, all that kind of stuff. I used to watch all the Discovery Channel shows and everything on all that stuff. And one of the things I had come across was this archaeologist who had pointed out, like, he's like, hey, you guys, you know, you all talk about the different ruins and stuff we have here, but look at this. I'm going to show you guys something. And he's like in Italy or one of these places like that. He says, now here's the traditional stone that we use in the new houses and things. And then you go down here, here's the stuff from way a long time ago. And this is stones. He's like, but this stuff. And he points at the big stones that are all put together, and it makes like the foundation of these old towns and stuff. And there's not much left in some places. And other places, there's a little more. He's like, these, nobody knows who made these. No archaeologist who's in this stuff can agree with another archaeologist as to who the heck made them. Nobody knows who made them. But what's interesting, he says, is if you take an electrical charge and he puts it up, he's like, and you can measure over here with the device, and these stones have electricity transfer through them. And he theorized that at one point all these places were all connected and there was energy transferring through them. And this is like the 90s. And this was nothing conspiracy theorist. This was just an archaeologist talking his stuff, right? So the Tartarian stuff is the same things. They're talking about the same principles and ideas, right?
They do find they do find magnetic anomalies around some of these sites. I've even seen in some of Brian Forrester's videos, they'll bring like different tools and they'll measure like in some cases there'll be like high levels of radiation. In other cases there'll be like magnetic anomalies, and they don't really know. Even acoustic anomalies, like weird things, dude. That they're mystified.
I agree.
So,
and when they say that, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna just quickly before we go on. The age, is it always the oldest stuff that seems to be more conductive? I'm just wondering if there's an association between the age of it and the more conductivity. If you say that like it's not necessarily. Yeah, well, I'm just thinking as well, is like, you know, if you put a piece of building material in place, like it doesn't remain inert. It is exchanging properties with the environment, and then let's say that things maybe become more conductive over time, and thus, like, it might be sort of like it's just a cause and effect of the fact that it's been around for a little bit longer, that it takes on more conductive properties, and we're observing that, and we're sitting here going, what if it was like a mad culture that sort of was able to do electrical phase exchange through the building material itself, and well, it's actually just because of a sort of an atomic exchange that occurs over a very long time period when it's like sort of in a certain environment, maybe the air or in the ground or whatever it is.
I don't know anybody who's done any
I'm not
tests
sure.
in Peru, and that's one of the older ones. The oldest one I ever known about or read about was actually they found them in Transylvania or somewhere, Romania somewhere, anyways. And it was really odd. Like they were not only these, and the structures were not the same as the Tartarian ones. They were like just a weird kind of, but they were very well done, like super fucking like the high technology to build them, and they're like, wow, this is really amazing, really crazy. And you know what's even crazier, they go, is that every 70 years or so these guys destroyed their city, moved somewhere else, and built a new one. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But you know what does make sense is that they're trying to hide the fact that even though there was this great technologically advanced civilization in the past, something came around and wiped them out constantly. Right? They don't want to admit that there was something even more technologically advanced than that around at the time. That's what I'm thinking. But no evidence of, I don't think anybody's tested that stuff for any conductivity or anything. But I mean, and when it comes to removal of Tartarian stuff, there's a lot of good evidence. For example, we live in Canada. Like, there's not supposed to be anything ancient here, right? There's no ancient ruins. There's no fucking pyramids, supposedly, or any of that kind of stuff. But if you travel back from my town to the big city is about 300 kilometers away. I live way up in the boonies, right in the bush. And about halfway through this trip, when you're traveling there, there's this one called an upper and lower lake of two different lakes. One's on one side of the highway and one's on the other. Now, if you're going around the right corner at the right time, if you turned your head back, there was a fucking castle. I mean, like a big stone, actual fucking castle there. And what what was going around, the reason why it was there, is they said they were bringing it in stone by stone from over in Europe somewhere and rebuilding it here. However, if you go by there now, it's gone. And it's nothing there. And there's no mention of it in any books or anything like that. There's no mention of it in their town stuff that was there. There's nothing. However, if you go ask anybody who's like over the age of 30, who's drove in there, which is basically everybody up here, you got fucking 30, 40,000 people easily, they will all tell you they remember seeing this castle, but they removed it all. There's major evidence of giant cities and stuff up here. People look at the mountains a little differently in certain areas. Like there's an area called Ghost River. If you guys search up people's 4x4 videos or sometimes even just the kayakers and such, you'll start looking and be like, holy crap, look at all this stuff. It looks like there's a giant fucking city in the horizon that got blown to shreds. Like one looks like a dome, one looks like a pyramid, one looks like a castle. The sheer walls on it are like 200 feet plus high. But it looks like a mountain. It's like a whole mountain-sized building. That's massive, man. Some of the stuff in there, you got chunks of fucking rock falling down. That's all just like looks like bricks and layered and fucking or cement or something in different layers, and it's all rectangular, broken, humongous, massive chunks, and the whole landscape's like that for probably 50 kilometers. Curiously, if you look at the old maps that mention Tartaria, and it's stretching over here, we're like right at the tip of where they say Tartaria was up in here, and it came down to like Los Angeles, California range and went over to like New York kind of area. And there does seem to be the most ruins in those areas. That is like for example, New York. It's a big city, right? Like that's massive. Like my town was the fastest growing place in Canada for I think 6 or 8 years. And we have big money, oil money here. You have military here, so there's always big stuff being built. Now in 100 years, we got 16,000 people. We got a couple Walmart, like a Walmart and a couple of buildings like that and some shopping centers, but we ain't got nothing big or special, no ancient cathedrals, none of that stuff. So in 100 years, I can see what we have built with the technology we have now. Now we're going to go back in time to like the 1600s, and they built this massive city in like 250 years, supposedly, because in the 1900 pictures, the late 1800s, New York's massive. There's big fucking buildings everywhere. But then you find out, if you go do a tour over there anywhere, that there is layers of catacombs under New York. There's basically a city under the city. So you mean to tell me in record time they built this massive city, but then that wasn't good enough, they buried it and built another one on top? Oh my gosh, man, like that's some really stretch of the imagination to grasp your mind around that being possible. And the California Gold Rush, there's still posters that people have saved since then, and it shows, I think it's Los Angeles, but don't hold me to that. One of the cities there is fucking, the gold miners there. They're welcome to the gold rush. It's been happening for 30 years at this point, roughly, by the time the poster comes out. And the city that's shown in the image looks like Rome. Like it's big and massive and great architecture and stuff. And people are just not, they're ignoring the fact and willing to believe that a bunch of prospectors built Rome in 30 years? No. You guys ever hear about that crystal thing? It was like a floor crystal or something. It was a massive crystal structure they found in California. I think it was in Los Angeles or whatever, and then they blew it up. You guys ever hear about that? I was researching the World
Yep.
Fairs and such, and it was one of the things in that.
There was a bunch of those structures that they blew up.
Well, I got my grandpa had a generator for it's like 30s. It's like the size of a 500 big block. It's a huge fucking engine for a generator. It's got a stack on it. You got to put a fucking metal thing on top of it to hold the steel for the smokestack or whatever it is. And the thing is like 800 watts, I think, at best. Like maybe it might even be less than that. I was like, wow, that's a big fucking generator for like next to no fucking power, right? See me and tell me in the 1800s. They had out in the middle of the desert this fucking small city-sized complex with 100 or 100,000 fucking light bulbs and moving buildings and fucking tram fucking ways and all kinds of stuff. How the fuck were they powering it if the fucking generators 50 years later only put out 800 watts for a fucking like a 500 big block, right? Like, come on. There's no way they could have powered that back then.
We don't really know their capabilities. But I mean, if
Fair
you're
enough.
on archive.org, there's plenty of literature. Like it's you'll never be able to cover all of it. It's just impossible. But there's tons of books, dude. And I suggest you
I just think
because they did have a lot of technology. And
refurbished
honestly, earlier we were talking about like ancient technologies. Like we really don't know the ancients either. Like what type of technology they had and their capabilities. You can only speculate. But whether it's the 1800s or 3000 BC or antediluvian stuff like Vimanas and who knows what, dude. Fallen angel technology.
Really
it sounds
crazy.
unbelievable, but
estimates that these places were probably under ice for like 10,000, 12,000 years. And the fact that they still fucking worked after people came there is like, what level of technology had these people conceived or built? Even if it was only a few hundred years or 400, 500, 600 years later, it's still working, right? Like, wow.
Also, I wouldn't underestimate human ingenuity because we're capable of incredible art. It's like talents that we have, and some of these sculptors, and you gotta admit, part of Tartaria is architecture and admiring the different types of architecture and sculptures and statues.
Yeah, it was beautiful work, man.
Men carved that still even
Humans didn't do that shit.
Even the paintings, even Da Vinci. Whatever you think about Da Vinci, his artwork mystifies even science today because of the microns in thickness and the color and the pigments. How they were able to achieve that. They don't know how to achieve it today, dude. Allegedly.
Same with the Roman cement, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had steam. They had a lot of steam powered engines, blocks, and
you can find evidence. You can find evidence of steam going back like to 2,000, over 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. They talk about there's actually diagrams from like the Greek times of steam engines and generators and all sorts of just smoking gadgets.
I mean, we got to look at the fact that we've been digging up people's gold and jewelry and stuff for over 10,000, 12,000 years ago, right? So they say the Iron Age was only like a couple thousand years ago. So why the heck were we mining and making gold before we even knew how to smelt iron? Right? That doesn't make any sense. Somebody taught us to do that or say, hey, you go get the shit, right?
I could be wrong, but I actually, as far as I know with metallurgy, it's actually much, much easier to, do things with gold than it is iron. In fact, it's easier to do things with gold than I think any other metal.
Why would you have even tried it with gold to begin with?
Because that's the easiest one to start with.
No, iron's the easiest one to start with.
Gold is softer. Like, you don't even need to heat up metal. Like gold, you don't need to heat it up to like form it. You know that, right?
Sort of. But I mean, they would have had to dig down into the quartz for that. They would have had been mining in the first place to get the quantities that they had.
No, that's not true. If you understand where the highest concentration of gold is in the world, if you read the testimonies, right, it literally says that the Philippines still is per square area the most dense place in the world.
That's not where they dug up those bodies that were covered in gold.
Well, hold on. I'm just saying that it was easily accessible. There's a technical name I can't remember right now, where there was no mining involved. It was literally right there, like on the ground, like in the surface. You could just grab it, a couple inches into the ground, dude.
I'm saying like the idea of to take it and to smelt it and to turn the metallurgy. You get what I'm saying? Like they had to be super advanced to be at that point.
No, dude,
you're not sticks and stones, right? Like to be smithing and to be like metallurgy.
The Portuguese,
some crazy
bro,
shit, man.
listen. I'll pull up the sources in a second. The Portuguese, when they arrived in the Philippines, the natives completely like uncivilized, were covered in gold.
You
Like
don't
they
find
had
that suspicious?
tons of gold. No, because the gold was easily accessible, dude. It was like on the surface.
Yeah, but who
was
taught
insane.
them to smith it all when they were sitting there in tribal?
Even today, they prevent companies from mining in the Philippines because they don't want to destroy it. But there's so much gold there. It's
if you don't see what I'm
ridiculous.
saying, that's fine. I'm not going to try to press the issue.
Nah, because you're acting like it's difficult to siphon gold, even if it wasn't like in its pure state.
advanced
Dude,
to
it's
melt
not
it.
something. It's not as advanced as you're trying to make it seem, dude. You just heat
it's
it up.
actually like the one like element that's like easiest to do that with. Like even silver is
separate
worth
the
a lot less
dross.
money than gold, but silver requires a lot more refining like expertise to actually get pure silver than it does take pure gold. Like you pretty much need, as far as I know, just heat.
And you know
Lots
what's
of heat
interesting
for gold.
is that if you look at like cultures all around the world, they all have stories where they learn like their smithing and their techniques from either beings that came from the sky, the ocean, or the gods.
Word. That's what I'm on that impression of. You guys smelted gold? I've smelted gold.
No.
Yes, my woman says I got it everywhere too. And you know, when it's mixed at only it's like 10 carats. It actually has a bunch of copper in it. So the melting point, the warning to you all, is a little bit lower than it is if it's pure gold, believe it or not. So when you heat it up to say gold smelting point and then go try to pour it, it's way more viscous than you'd expect. And it comes out like sploosh. And gold magma is really hot when it hits your skin. It's not fun. It embeds itself right in your skin.
Definitely not.
You gotta like peel it out after.
Any molten metal is not fun when it hits your skin.
But I tell you, when you're fucking smelting it and you like pour that thing in and like you turn the lights off or something and look at that brick's just turning fucking, it's just glowing in the light. It's almost like, it's super cool. You guys have to try it sometime. Go gather all your old pennies and go smelt them up. You can actually build a cheap smelter with a microwave. You take some, there's this fireproof foam you can get to insulate fireplaces with. Like it's a hard styrofoam. You can cut it in the shapes you want. You cut it in a nice little square, hollow it out on the inside, and you put your kiln inside that and put your metal in there and throw it in the microwave, and this shit will fucking actually melt. I was so mad when I figured that out after I spent $450 on an electric kiln.
I bet you are.
You know why they put gold plating on the wires, on circuit boards when you're on the connection parts between one circuit board and another in your computer?
Because it's really conductive. It's like the best conductor in the world.
No, actually, copper is more conductive than gold, so that's not the reason why. The reason why is because gold doesn't oxidize, copper does. So the outside layer of these connectors, they lose their ability to connect with each other unless they're a countable number of atoms thick gold plating between them.
Have you ever heard of a coil gun by chance? It's like a at-home mini railgun you can make for yourself with a cell phone battery and such. Shoot like a 6-ounce slug, like 80 kilometers an hour. That's with the regular traditional copper wiring and such. But if you switch that wiring to gold wiring, the speed increases to like 600 kilometers an hour. Gold's definitely more conductive than copper. Monoatomic gold is the only
silver is more
superconductor in the
conductive
world.
than both.
Silver
is more conductive than either of those.
You know that monoatomic gold's the only superconductor in the world that doesn't need to be minus like 200 degrees Celsius, right? Or Fahrenheit.
I don't mean by that, but as far as I know, it's gold. Silver is number 1, copper is number 2, and gold is number 3 as far as electronic conductivity goes. Copper rusts so much more easily than gold.
Sorry, I got distracted there. What did I miss?
You're pretty close. Aluminum is number 4. Gold is number 3. In regards to the dielectric values, in regards to conductivity.
What about monoatomic gold?
That's what I said. But you didn't say number 1, number 2.
Okay, well, monoatomic, that one I can't speak on. But the reason we use copper as a main conductor is because of its abundance and its dielectric values. But silver is the best conductor, natural conductor, that we can basically You can create it. No, it's not create it, but we can mine it. But yeah, gold is not necessarily the best, but silver and copper are very, very good.
Sorry, I interrupted you, man. I've been thinking about this, right? We got this idea of the reptilians, and I was wearing a bit of copper jewelry for around about a month there, and my skin turned green. And I was always like wondering, do they wear copper? Do they, and you hear people who drink colloidal silver, right? Apparently they turn blue. I don't know if that's a myth, conspiracy, whatever it is, but what if you drink too much copper? Would you start turning green? And so what if there's this culture sort of connected with the notion of copper consumption, and they're going all they're rich and powerful, but they're turning green, and people generally want to emulate royalty and those that are powerful, so they start worshipping the green people because they got this green skin, and that just gets associated symbolically with reptilians. I don't know, just an idea I had.
There was actually an old story. It's it's not a myth or anything. It's a real story from Germany back in the 1700s. They found these two children that were completely green, and then they brought them back to regular society. The kids, they didn't talk for a long time. One of them died, I think. And the other one, after being in the regular society long enough, eating their food, its skin turned back to normal color. I think when that one learned to speak, they came from underground or something. They said they came from a cave or something. I don't remember. It's like an old fucking legend tale from Germany, but it mentions the green skinned kids and the one turning back normal color when the diet was normal. So maybe a bunch of copper can make people turn green,
That's what I'm wondering. It's I still got that ring on right now. I got a green band on my finger. I'm just sitting there going I know they used to wear gold in the past and people wear silver, and they don't really wear copper anymore. And I don't know, maybe there was just this thing called the Copper Age, and it's I don't believe too much in history, but I think that these myths seem to get passed down, and I just try to construct alternative means. It's kind of interesting for me. I don't think there's any way of proving this stuff. I just think there's a interesting sort of, what do they call that? Symmetries, whatever the terms.
Speaking of odd properties, you guys done any research on mercury? Did you know if you take it and put it into a beaker, and you add you put an anode or whatever wire inside, and on the inside you're positive and the negative on the bottom, I think it is. Don't hold me to that, but it's something like that. And you put the mercury in there and you turn on and turn your electromagnetic field on. Now normally when you turn something on like that and have a liquid something with metal in there, it's reacting to the magnet. You turn it on, it will start spinning or whatever at the speed of the hertz.
That's what I'm wondering. It's I still got that ring on right now, and I got a green band on my finger. And I'm just sitting there going I know they used to wear gold in the past and people wear silver, and they don't really wear copper anymore. And I don't know, maybe there was just this thing called the Copper Age, and it's I don't believe too much in history, but I think that these myths seem to get passed down, and I just try to construct alternative means. It's kind of interesting for me. I don't think there's any way of proving this stuff. I just think there's a interesting sort of, what do they call that? Symmetries, whatever the terms.
Speaking of odd properties, you guys done any research on mercury? Did you know if you take it and put it into a beaker, and you add you put an anode or whatever, a wire inside, and on the inside you're positive and then negative on the bottom, I think it is. Don't hold me to that, but it's something like that. And you put the mercury in there and you turn your electromagnetic field on. Now normally when you turn something on like that and have a liquid something with metal in there, that's reacting to the magnet, you turn it on, it will start spinning or whatever at the speed of the hertz or whatever you turn it to, the frequency. However, and if you turn it up, it will spin faster, right? However, mercury's got a really crazy property. If you turn it on, it starts spinning, and it'll spin faster, and it'll spin faster without turning it up. It just keeps spinning faster and faster. It actually has warnings on these experiments when you decide to try them, because the mercury can knock the beaker right off, and then you got mercury everywhere, right? And did you know that mercury just sucks up silver and gold? Just takes that shit like nothing. If you take a gold fucking foil, you can find videos of this easily enough. Buddy buys the gold leaves, puts it down, and takes a couple drops of mercury, and it just sucks it right up and absorbs it. So it's actually a crude process for mining. You can take a bunch of mercury and just pour it on the rock, and then get it up afterwards, and you boil it, and it'll evaporate that mercury off of there, and you'll have your gold left over. But it's really dangerous. The fumes are supposed to be really lethal.
Of course it is. Don't try this at home. That sort of shit.
Buddy mentioned Ewar Anon earlier, and that's what his idea is on the free energy. They thinks that they had two tubes spiraling opposite of each other, and in one tube you have amalgamated mercury with gold, and in the other tube you have amalgamated mercury with silver, and that represents the yin and the yang, and they spiral around. The twin serpents, it's all meaning the same thing, and it's I'm not sure that's the exact design of it, but roughly that's what he's talking about. So it's pretty interesting stuff. It makes me wonder. As you said, I went searching. Yes, silver is the most conductive one of the bunch, three that we were mentioning. So definitely something there that could be noted. And a bunch of guys who did construction on a lot of these old buildings and such, and renovations, demos and such, they noted there was a whole bunch of mercury in the walls and pipes and such of all these buildings. It still is to this day in some of them.
It kind of does make sense that copper is the most conductive. If it is patinaing on the outside, patina is a corrosion. Corrosion can be caused by electrolysis. So it kind of makes sense that it's more conductive. So gold then has a unique property in the sense that you can leave it in the atmosphere. It's the highest conductivity for the least amount of corrosion.
Yep. There's more to it.
Which,
I bet
like,
you we're
you know,
just babies in this stuff, man. I bet you there's a lot more uses for gold, and that's why the ones beforehand made us mine it. Secondly, where is all the gold, man? There's not very much left. Like, haven't we been mining it for like 10,000 years? Shouldn't we have like cities built of it and such? Like the Spaniards supposedly raided like 100,000 tons from the fucking Mayans and such, and all those guys, right? So where is it all? Why is the value up so high now, too? Like, wow, is it getting expensive? Oh, a note, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, gold and silver, technically, they don't really rise or drop. That's a misconception that people have. If the price of gold is going up, what's really going on is the value of your dollar is dropping.
So what, you reckon gold's actually, like, it is the stabilizer, like, it sits stable.
It always has been the standard, right?
Yeah. But they inflect it or they invert it and say that the value is going up. Interesting.
Yes.
Dude, there's a lot of gold, dude. There's a ton of it.
I mean, I've heard that before, but I mean, I beg to differ.
There's so much gold, dude. It's just they don't want you accessing it. That's all. It's like oil. You know, they gatekeep it and act like
Keep in mind,
it's limited.
it's not
limited. Like diamonds, they act like it's limited. It's not limited, dude.
The price of it determines a large part whether or not people ever bother to mine it, gold and silver. So like these days, a lot less silver is being mined because with how cheap silver is these days and how much it costs to mine it, it's a lot cheaper to just go to a regular minimum wage job and then spend all the money on silver. And you have more silver at the end of the day than if you went to go mine it with your own tools as one man, you know. But with gold, it's a little different. With gold, it's a little more economical, but keep in mind, mining drastically goes up and down depending on the price of gold and silver. Like when it's really, really high, then people go mine.
Yeah, I'm posting some sources regarding the amount of gold that's littered in the Philippines.
Do you mean like in natural rock and sort of like within the it's not harvested or mined yet?
Yeah. But it's inaccessible to they don't allow people to mine it.
Of course not.
Well, the thing is, they will disturb the ecosystem, right? If they start digging it up and taking all the gold out, but you got to be wise about it.
I mean, what do you think in relation to taking gold and consuming it and or wearing it and as a conductive, like to improve the conductivity within the biology and the health? And so they've like sort of sequestered that. Maybe some guys were trying to do it with copper, you know, ingesting copper to get that same conductivity, but they started turning green, so they became the reptiles.
I know that when it comes to like metals in your body for like if you're wanting like a tooth replaced or these kind of things like that, all this different stuff, that gold is like the least reactive in the human body. Like your body accepts it pretty easily compared to everything else.
Well, it doesn't corrode it or something, I suppose, yeah.
Like even if you have titanium, eventually it can poison you. It most likely won't, but it can poison you. It can give you like toxic shock syndrome or something. I don't remember exactly what, but I had to get my teeth replaced. I was looking into it, all that stuff. But gold is actually like there's never any problems with anybody who inserts gold into their body.
Or do you want like a golden hip or something replacement when the time comes?
Nope, I'm okay. I mean, if I could replace all my bones with gold, that might seem like an okay idea at first until something hit me really hard and now you're dented and it's bent. You're like, oh shit.
You got the wolf. You like I don't know if I levels up when he gets going on the X-Men, and then like you've got this character called Wolverine where they sort of like put him in an electrical chamber, like and then they turn his bones into titanium by sort of electrolysis. It would seem.
Is that how the comic book goes?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an avid fan. I'm familiar with it. It becomes titanium. Adamantium, sorry.
Yeah, the adamantium. In the movies, they pump it into him and it melts to his bones.
Yeah, but I mean, that's going to be a process of electrolysis, like you know what gold plating does, and titanium plating. I'm sure it's an extension of that concept.
That would fucking suck.
Right here, you are. I got a source. Antonio Picafera. It says, in island Mindanao, belonging to the king Butuan, who came to the ship, there are mines of gold which they find in pieces as big as a walnut or an egg by seeking in the ground. Pieces of gold the size of walnuts and eggs are found by sifting the earth in the island of Mindanao, who came to our ships. Like, dude, it's like something that you see in a Hollywood flick. It used to be like that. I mean, even now, it's still according to the data, it's the second highest concentration of gold in the world. But per square area, it's the highest dense.
You think, right? Like, so the different countries, like particularly in Australia and New Zealand, like you end up with these massive nature reserves, which are royal land essentially, and you're required as a nation to try to sort of set, like you can develop this part of the build houses on it, but the rest of this is nature reserve. And so then they just basically sequester large portions, and maybe Philippines trade is like we've got all this gold in this area, so we'll just say that this is not developable,
That's what I said over here. Because all the best spots in British Columbia to get mining stuff is all crown protected.
Yeah, so this is how they control it through sort of allowing access to the land, and this is the thing you've got to negotiate with each one of the governments, and each one of the governments, at least as far as British Columbia, the Commonwealths are concerned, like they operate in this way. Yeah,
powers of the land. Yeah, that's how it works. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, no, yeah, Ophir. It used to be called Ophir, the land of the East, and the trade routes and the spices, and people slack. People are sleeping on the Philippines, bro. And I'm not from the Philippines. I don't have a bias, but there are places in the world that people just probably never looked into. And the Philippines is one of those places that gets overlooked. But it's like,
for like ancient structures and
that too. A lot of ancient stories. There used to be merchants that would travel to the Philippines from not only Jerusalem but from Egypt, specifically because the Philippines is a unique location. It has some of the world's most highest concentration of ivory. A bunch of precious, like ivory, natural ivory.
You mean ebony? Ebony ivory?
They get it from
They used to find. They were literally pulling like mountains of ivory out of the ground. They weren't poaching any of these animals like they pretend they are now. They literally started finding like literally like mass grave sites of like what woolly mammoths and shit like that. And they were just fucking like all over the world. We're pulling these fucking ivory tusks out. Some areas had a lot more than others. It's kind of crazy if you look into that ever. Like the ivory trade. Yeah, dude. The origin of the ivory trade is like they try to pretend like it's like poachers and shit, but it was mass graves from some pretty recent extinction.
Biblically, you got 2 Chronicles chapter 9 regarding Tarshish. Now Tarshish is debated. I believe Tarshish is in the Philippines with Sheba. And it says, for the king's ship Solomon's went to Tarshish with the servants of Haram. Every 3 years, once came the ships of Tarshish bringing gold and silver, ivory, and peacocks, dude. It says peacocks. And apes, which all these peacocks are found in the Philippines. Apes are found, ivory, gold. The Queen of Sheba, too, is alleged to have come from the Philippines, not from Kush, like some people assume.
Fucking.
I wonder if metals, like the price of certain metals, might go down due to automation. Like, I was wondering if like they're using robots yet to like send down to mines instead of people. It's safer and easier. And apparently they don't have like people shaped robots going down to mines, but they do have like remote controlled dump trucks and haulers going in after they blast. So like half the work in certain mines done with just remote control machines from the surface, remotely controlled.
Some of the biggest pearls, dude, are also found in the Philippines. Like gigantic.